AI sabotage at Stack Overflow.
It's very sad that they are treating their users this way, but also I would absolutely expect this from any company whose goal is profit.
All that venture money going into OpenAI is making its way to Stack Overflow as a result of this partnership.
So I think the moral of the story is Vermont to charge big oil companies for climate change. The fossil fuel companies are trying to shift the blame to residents who actually combusted the fuel, saying, hey, we only made the fuel and refined it so that you could use it and burn it, but you actually burned it, so it's your fault.
My problem here is have you met the Supreme Court?
You know, if nothing else, we can take solace in the fact that if we do wipe all of ourselves out with climate change.
Hello, how the tech are you? I am historian Matt, and this is our tech show on Echoplex Media. We talk about tech news, science news, what other tech and science stuff we want to talk about. I am the co-producer and a co-host. My other co-hosts will introduce themselves during their segments, but I just want to jump right into my stories. My first story is AI sabotage at Stack Overflow. What am I talking about? Well, basically, Stack Overflow and OpenAI have entered into a partnership that will add Stack Overflow's content into ChatGPT. And Stack Overflow's community is not happy. Real quick, if you don't know what Stack Overflow is, then you're probably not a developer because that's where we get all our answers. But basically, it's a question and answer type website that is very popular among developers and a lot of other technical type people. The community has spent a lot of hours answering questions on the website, and it's a really good resource. And now they're expecting OpenAI AI to basically scrape all that and put it in the ChatGPT with little, reference or license or anything like that. Some users are actually threatening to delete or deface answers to sabotage the partnership. What's really odd about this partnership, I guess, is that Stack Overflow banned answers written by AI that include, answers written by ChatGPT until very recently. So it's kind of a surprise that, it's kind of switched to now you can use ChatGPT or other AI to write answers, and we're just going to scrape all your answers to help ChatGPT out. At least one user so far has tried to delete their highest rated answers in protest, but Stack Overflow reverted the deletion and ended up banning the user. So you can't even go back and change your answers, delete answers in protest to try to keep a hold of your own IP. What do you guys think about this craziness?
Dumb.
Yeah.
I think it's very sad that they are treating their users this way, but also I would absolutely expect this from any company whose goal is profit, not to be a good force in the world.
Right. Yeah. I'm assuming some of all that venture money going into OpenAI is making its way to Stack Overflow as a result of this partnership.
Yeah.
Yep. Also, if you post something on a website, generally in the terms of that website, if you're like posting to like a social network or something like Stack Overflow where you're answering questions, generally in the terms of service of that website, you're basically giving them the right to use that information, what you post, for pretty much any reason, usually. So yeah, the users who posted this stuff agreed to it, so they're getting exactly what they agreed to.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of a dick move, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying it's not a dick move. I'm saying the users agreed to them pulling all sorts of dick moves.
It's kind of odd, though. They're like, we want this particular contribution from you, but we actually don't want any more of your other contributions in the future, which seems a little interesting.
I mean, Reddit did the same thing. A bunch of people tried to sabotage their own post history on Reddit. And in case you're unaware, these posts, the history of them is maintained. So you can go in and edit and delete your comments, edit your comments, fill them full of garbage. But all the history of it, what you said originally, that's still there.
I'm wondering if any of these users will have any legal status to go after Stack Overflow.
No.
Yeah,
But
I would
it
highly
probably
doubt
depends
it.
on how they worded the terms of service. But if they're using their answers in a way that they did not expect, and it's not written properly in their terms of service, basically they might have some legal action. But I wouldn't count on it.
Yeah,
It's,
I'm counting on the terms.
unlikely.
I'm betting the terms of service say, you post it, we own it. That's it. We can do whatever we want with it. That's what the terms of
I
service
doubt they
probably
did,
say.
like-
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just saying the terms of service are probably like vague enough that how they were written by the lawyer would allow the company to just do whatever they want going forward in the future. It would say, X, Y, and Z and any other, uses that the Stack Overflow sees fit going forward or whatever. It's probably worded in some way like that because of course it is.
Yeah, I was saying I doubt that they have like a copyright ownership transfer clause, which would be what you'd need to say like, you post it, we own it. So I doubt that Stack Overflow owns that content, but they probably have a clause in there saying they can use it for whatever reason they want.
Right. And that's a distinction almost without a difference as to like ownership, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, not great, but not surprising. I mean, I'm not sure that, a company like Stack Overflow was exactly raking in the dough on ad money or whatever. So, it would, they're a company like anybody else trying to get returns for their investors. And OpenAI is awash with venture money, and they can just spread it around to sites that they want to scrape. And that's not, the users be damned, I suppose. But like that's business, baby.
So I think the moral of the story is do not post on any websites, including the comments on YouTube. So don't post any comments. Don't be owned by YouTube.
Stop posting.
Or what you could do is there's this technique that people have started using where essentially what you're doing is you're modifying your text to have invisible characters in between all of the letters or in between like, random letters. Okay. So that to a human reading that text, it looks perfectly normal. But to a machine reading it, they'll see a bunch of these invisible characters and they won't know how to parse it. They won't be able to turn that into tokens that are usable for an AI.
Huh.
Man, that sounds like a lot of work when I just want to call somebody a dumbass on Twitter.
I'm sure there'll be like a browser plugin at some point that does that.
Oh, yeah.
But also it's probably not really very useful because they probably like get rid of that kind of those kind of characters when they're going through the data, getting it ready to put in.
True.
Yeah. It's not like the good old days where you could hide text in the background of your web page by making the text the same color as the background of your web page, and nobody could find it because on your GeoCities site people didn't think to highlight the whole page. The good old days.
Good old days. Yeah.
Right. Well, what else you got, Matt?
My next one is Vermont to charge big oil companies for climate change. Basically, Vermont may become the first state to charge fossil fuel companies for damages caused by climate change. The law was passed in a preliminary vote in the Senate, the state Senate, and a final vote on the law is expected soon. And of course, since it passed in the preliminary vote, is expected to pass in the final vote. Then it goes to the governor to sign or veto. However, there's expected to be such strong support for the law that it will likely override any veto. It is based on the EPA's Superfund program, which forces parties responsible for contamination to perform the cleanup or reimburse the EPA for the cleanup work. The law could end up costing fossil fuel companies billions of dollars, which is, fine because last summer it is estimated that Vermont residents lost about $1 billion due to damages caused by flooding linked to climate change. The fossil fuel companies are trying to shift the blame to residents who actually combusted the fuel, saying, hey, we only made the fuel and refined it so that you could use it and burn it, but you actually burned it, so it's your fault. What do you guys think?
Of course they said that it's your fault for burning this fossil fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure after, lobbying the government to make sure that, alternatives to that kind of energy were nowhere to be found.
Right.
Or difficult to acquire. might be a better way to say it. This is good. I don't know who the New Hampshire governor is, but if this has this broad of support in the legislature, I also couldn't see why they wouldn't sign it. It would just be bad politics if something's that popular. Probably also pretty popular among the citizens of, probably also popular among the citizenry. My problem here is have you met the Supreme Court?
No, I haven't met them, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And the fossil fuel companies are also saying that it's probably unconstitutional that federal law supersedes it. But I don't know. It seems to be a law like that mimics the EPA laws. So it should be fairly, there seems to be some support for it in that case. So it might end up having to play out in courts. Hopefully it'll be fine. It'll get through all the scrutiny, but we'll see if it goes to the Supreme Court. If
it goes to the Supreme Court, I mean, two of the justices would basically have to buck, right? They'd have to go the other way. Getting one to go the other way, it seems possible. Getting two to go the other way, I'm not hopeful here. I don't know enough about this. Like the as they say, the devil's in the details. There may be flaws with it that have really nothing to do with people's ideological disposition in favor of these big oil companies or whatever. It may be one of those things. They end up rewriting it 3 or 4 times. This has happened in the past with other laws that don't pass legal scrutiny. But I mean, even if it doesn't pass legal scrutiny, it's like kind of a shot across the bow in a way, where like the government is like, well, we are actually going to use our largesse to try to stop you, and that's right. Yeah, that's stunning here in America.
I also think it's necessary because, these companies basically get away with having privatized profits but socialized costs. The cost of these products is essentially the health of the environment and the population. Yeah. And they're getting away with not having to pay that cost themselves. They make everyone else pay that cost.
Right. And I think one of the problems there is that cost can sometimes be intangible or difficult to quantify. And then even if you believe you've quantified it, then you have to demonstrate it to a certainty, maybe to some entity, probably in this case being legislatures or the courts, that don't necessarily even understand what you're talking about. So this is a tough hill to climb. If it were a larger state, California, New York, Texas, come on, not Texas, but Florida, a more populous state, I feel like this would be bigger news, right? We'd be seeing it outside of the tech and science press. So we'll see. Maybe a state like California and New York will follow the leader here.
Hopefully. Yep. But we'll have to see if the law passes legal scrutiny. The alternative at the moment, and that has been used in the past, is through legal means, basically going through the courts to try to wrestle money back from fossil fuel companies to pay for, it's not just pay for damages, but also pay for upgrades to infrastructure to deal with climate change. That's another big problem. But that's, very difficult to do. And, it's not likely to work. There's a high chance of failure.
Yeah, there's a lot of waste in our electrical infrastructure. A lot of problems where if those were fixed, I mean, that's not the long-term fix, but in the shorter, medium term, fixing the electrical grid would help a great deal in reducing because if you're getting, let's say, you have 10 of energy being produced, and then by the time it gets to the end, you have 8.5 of energy being received. There's a huge problem there, right? You're losing. I don't know what the numbers are, but there's inefficiencies in the system that if those got fixed, that would be one more thing to try to help, but nobody wants to pay for that. You've seen the power lines in this country?
I mean, it's there's more basic stuff than that. Obviously power lines would be great, especially in a transition to, A, electricity, and B, using some sort of renewable energy. But they're talking about stuff like just upgrading storm drains to handle the bigger storms that are expected. That sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Basic infrastructure stuff that is needed to deal with climate change.
Not great, but hopefully this will. I'm cynical. I don't think this. I think this is going to this. I have the governor. If it's that popular, I think the governor of Vermont's a liberal too. So I think they're probably going to sign it. But as soon as this goes in there's gonna be a challenge, and then there'll be an injunction while it goes through the courts, and then it could take 10 years to go through the courts, and then like it's useless actually. Because then the problems in 10 years might be so dramatically different than the problems we have right now that whatever this isn't going to help anymore.
Right. Yeah.
If nothing else, we can take solace in the fact that if we do wipe all of ourselves out with climate change, we were not the first species to do so. In Earth's history, there was a thing called the Great Oxygenation Event, which is when a bunch of microorganisms started pumping out oxygen into the atmosphere, which to them was their waste product, but it was also poisonous to them once it reached a certain percentage. And once it reached that percentage, they all died.
At first, I thought you were talking about the dinosaurs, and I'm like, I don't think so, unless they had a asteroid program we don't know about.
No, they didn't climate change themselves. It was microorganisms that obviously they didn't know what they were doing because they're just microorganisms. But like, we know what we're doing. Like we know what we're doing. We can predict it, and we've known for decades, and we just can't stop. It's just so fun to burn gasoline. Thank you for tuning in to How the Tech Are You. We do this show every week and put it out in 3 segments on YouTube as well as a podcast. If you'd like to check out our other shows, you can do that at echoplexmedia.com. If you'd like to support us, you can do that at patreon.com/echoplex or eplex.store. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and there will be another video right here on the screen for you to check out next. Have a great tech and week.